What is up, Salt Company? Welcome to the Winter Breakdown Podcast. Man, second year in a row, but this year with a different group of people.
Woo-woo.
My name's Daniel.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Kaylee.
Yes, man. And
Oh my
we are so excited to
Just
be
ignore us, honestly.
answering all questions and all the things.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's get into it. We have an icebreaker question.
Yeah, let's on it.
So my question is, what is your worst first date or the most irrational thing that you've done while dating?
I want to go last.
Kayla, you go.
I'm going first to my own question.
You got
Yeah.
the best one. Come on.
This is good.
Okay, so the year was, maybe I shouldn't reveal the year because
Yeah,
that will reveal the person.
Don't do
Okay,
too much of that.
so when I was in college many years ago, I was supposed to go on a date with a guy that I'd been talking to for maybe a month or a month and a half. It was during COVID, so weird times.
Mhm.
I just gave it away. But I was talking to him, and then it came time where he asked me to go on a date, and I just was so nervous. And so basically I tried to break my foot the night before in order to get out of it. My roommate Molly had to stop me because I was standing at the back door of my house, literally preparing to slam the door on my foot in an attempt to cause some type of damage that could get me out of the date.
That's great.
That is honestly aggressive, and I think it's great.
Yeah, and I don't know, if you guys don't know me, that just maybe gives you a little bit of insight on who I am.
Yeah.
The things
Committed.
that I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything I do with excellence.
Oh, for sure. And you're going to fall in, maybe a little dramatic, but purpose.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
it's there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. Kaylee, what about you?
I don't know. I guess worst first date-ish is knowing that you're going into this date that it's not going to work out, but you have to just appease the person who set it up.
Mm.
And so going into the date, I'm I don't want to be going on this date, and this guy's very nice, but now I have to sit here and act pleasant the whole time and act engaged when I already know that I'm it's not going to go anywhere. And so okay, I'm not saying that to be judgmental on guys asking me out, but we just had different beliefs, and I knew that going in. And so I was yeah, this isn't going to work out. So then we left the coffee shop because it closed. And then I was I'm ready to go home. And then I couldn't go home because then he's oh, let's go out again. And now I had to go into this whole theological debate about why I did not want to go on a second date with him because he was Catholic and I was not.
Mm.
Was this a setup? You were set up?
I was,
by friends?
yes, it was set up. A coworker, her nephew. She's
Mm.
he's this good Catholic boy and you would just love him. And I was no, I actually would not. So
Oh,
great.
no.
he's great person. He's married. It's awesome. But I was I just know that I don't want to marry you. So
Nice.
I don't really want to go on this date.
That's great. I have so much horrific dating experience to pull from, but I think one, I think it was a sophomore in college, and went on a date with a girl, and we went to Chick-fil-A, talking forever. It was going really well. I was super excited, right? And then she's I gotta run some errands. Do you want to come too? So, sure. And I she gets her phone out while we're walking around to whatever store, and I see her phone lock screen's a dude, and I'm just immediately gosh dang it. So I
Did you say something?
yeah, I
Maybe
got
it
there
was her
though. I was
brother.
freaking out. So I'm texting my buddy hey dude, I don't know what to say. I feel I should just leave. This is weird. Turns out she lost a bet or whatever, and I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was super interesting, but I was just immediately dang it.
It's really
I don't know.
sad.
That's probably the most mild one I could think of.
It's fair.
But yeah, Kaylee, what are we talking about today?
All right, so we're talking about dating. If you can't tell, with these dating icebreaker questions, and why this matters. Well, a lot of you right now are single, dating, or preparing for marriage, and so this is the season of life that you are in. And I would say I'm very passionate about this subject. I would say that's actually a huge reason why college ministry specifically was something that I felt the Lord called me into. Because of just my past, my mistakes in dating, and then now being married, like what I've learned in singleness and what I've learned now bringing into marriage. Honestly, this topic is huge, and we would love to just give you guys insight on why this matters and like how to do it well and how to glorify God in this. Because we know that's most of your hearts, hopefully, is to honor and glorify the Lord. And we just want to give you practical advice to do that and talk through hard things that you guys want to know about and like how to actually do it practically. So
Yeah, that's good.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so to start from like the very beginning, right?
Genesis?
Just looking at relationships as a whole. Yeah, not Genesis. To start from the beginning of a dating relationship, maybe, or even just thinking through it. Like, how do you know if you're ready to be in a relationship?
Oh. Go for
Well,
it.
we can talk about maybe some signs that you aren't ready to be dating.
That's great.
So the first one is if you have any like unprocessed trauma.
Okay.
Expand on that a little.
I don't know, maybe I can say this.
You can say it.
Maybe if you're having a little bit of daddy issues, a little bit of mommy
Sure.
issues,
Yeah.
don't take that in to a relationship if you're not maybe like processing that.
Mhm.
Either with like a discipler or like a trusted friend or a counselor.
Yeah.
That's something that you should probably like have a little bit of
Grasp on.
yeah
that's
before
good.
taking that into a dating relationship.
So like
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, like be healthy.
Yeah.
Don't like
Yes.
bring in crud into a relationship that you yourself don't know how to deal with.
Yeah. There have been times for me that I had been struggling with like mental illness. Probably would not be a great time for me to enter into a dating relationship.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Potentially could make it worse.
Yeah.
Has made things worse before.
Yeah. And I think on that too, like why are you wanting to date someone? Like what's your goal in this? Like I think you have to ask that question. If it is solely just because you can't be alone, well, you should probably work through that. And if it's because you want to just like have the perfect Instagram to have the pretty boy in your Instagram, like maybe we should talk through why you're dating for looks and comparisons and just talk through motives in that.
Yeah, that's good. And I think just to round it off, the last thing I would say is if there's like any sort of like addiction or habitual sin, which I think when, we as Christians hear habitual sin, we're like, oh, well, I don't like do this every week. Like I'm not struggling with this sin like even every other week. Maybe it's once a month. I would say like that's still habitual.
Yeah.
Especially if it's sexual sin. Like
sure.
I would say like be walking in like sobriety from sexual sin for an extended period of time. And even just lastly, like have older people or like mentors or trusted community speaking into like, hey, like ask them, like, do you think I'm in a good spot to pursue this girl or this guy? And then go from there based on what they're saying. And yeah, take that counsel into consideration. But what about the people that aren't thinking about a relationship? Or maybe they're wanting one. They're kind of struggling through like, I'm single, but I don't want to be. What do you think? How do you walk through like being okay with being single?
Yeah, I think it goes back to motive even. Like what's your goal? Like if you're idolizing a relationship solely because you don't want to be alone and you're not actually content with God and like you're not content with where he has you, you're not content with yourself even, like I think we need to crush those idols and actually get down to working through those before you even bring anything into a relationship. Good. And then also I would say like the idolatry of control. Like are you just wanting to get out of being single because you just want to make sure that you're married? Like you just want to check that box to be like, I just don't want to be the single 30-year-old. And I'll tell you, like I just got married and I'm 29. So like singleness is an amazing season and I learned so much in singleness. So don't just like dread this season solely because you want to go to the next one. Your whole life is going to be about finding contentment in the season that you're in. and trusting
that's
the
good.
Lord in the season that you're in. And so, we just really have to work through the idolatry of relationships in general and the next season.
That's great. I just I cringe hearing like, oh, I'm in a season of waiting.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
ick.
no, because being single isn't necessarily like a sort of waiting
Yeah.
period to get towards a relationship. At least it doesn't need to be.
No, and there's no guarantee of getting married.
Right.
I have plenty of friends who are in their 30s who are not married. And like you have to wrestle with the Lord with that. Like you cannot just like expect that the Lord's going to give that to you. Like you
Mhm.
have to find contentment and trust him in the season that you're in. And like you said, it's not a season of waiting. It is truly like I'm in this season, there is purpose. I have to trust the Lord.
Come on.
And if you're just going to think that this season is like I'm just going to put in my time and get married, like that's not how God works. So we really need to address that.
Gosh,
Yeah.
that's fire.
I also want to say that you can't look at it as if it's like a problem that needs to be fixed or
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
a disease that needs to be healed.
Yep.
It's not COVID.
No, it's not. It's not COVID.
Oh my gosh.
There's
Seriously.
no medicine for it.
Yeah.
Except for just like being content in the Lord.
Mhm.
And so if you are a single person, don't constantly like be trying to seek out a relationship because that might not be the Lord's plan for you.
Yep.
And that's okay. Also, if you are like a married person, which you're probably not if you're listening to this podcast.
Maybe.
But you might be. Or if you're someone who's like in a long-term dating relationship, don't treat your single friends like they need to be fixed.
Mm.
That is one of the
Come on.
most unloving things that you can do to
Come on.
them.
Mhm.
Don't try to set them up.
Yeah.
Unwarranted. If they ask to be set up,
Fine.
sure, that's fine. Totally acceptable.
Yeah.
Do not just throw names at them of people to date. Sometimes that can be a little offensive.
Yeah. And I think like dating people and married people feed the lies that single people already hear
Mm-hmm.
and that they're already fighting on their own
Yeah.
to be like, I'm not good enough,
Mhm.
or God favors this person over me, or why do
Mm.
they get to be happy and I don't get to be? And so, like, I think we need to speak truth into that. And,
Yeah.
like, I don't think your friends need to be feeding those lies,
Yeah.
or your family, even for that sake, or just randos on the street
Mhm.
who are still asking you why you're single at 28.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, come on, like,
good.
we need to fight those lies. Like, we need to be strong in our beliefs,
Mhm.
in trusting the Lord, and then we can also fight those
Yeah.
and actually counter other people's comments on our singleness.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because how am I supposed to be content in my singleness
Yeah.
if my married friends
Mm.
are pointing out
Yeah.
Come on.
that
And have a
I
problem
need
with
to be
it.
in a relationship or
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be resolved?
Yep.
Gosh,
Preach.
that's good. Dang. Nothing to add to that. That was fire. That was so good. But like, so say you're looking for a relationship. You're in a solid place, to actually start dating. Your community's behind you.
Yep.
How do you even go about looking to find that person? Like, what are you looking for in someone that you're like, man, I'm kind of interested. Maybe I should ask them on a date, or
Yep.
yeah.
Honestly, I think us women like to create lists, and we like to have
Yes.
all the checklists of who is the best eligible bachelor, who will
Mhm.
meet all of my needs, that, all X, Y, and Z. But that's such a bad approach. That goes to control, that goes to, honestly feeding your own selfish desires of what you want in a relationship. And so I would say number one thing that is non-negotiable, and everything else is negotiable. They have to be a Christian.
Come on.
Yeah.
They have to be a Christian.
And I'm not saying like they claim to be a Christian or they go to church with you.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, like you saying that like, oh, I think he's a Christian. Like, I don't care if you think that or not. You need to find that out before you date them. And you need to actually seek out someone who is a Christian. Going to church with you does not equate as being a Christian. Reading your Bible one time does not equate of being a Christian. Being nice to you does not equate
Uh-oh.
about being a
Come on.
Christian. And so I just want to harp on this, that like we need to stop dating non-believers. We need to stop dating people who claim to be Christians who are not. And maybe you're wrestling with that because maybe you're not a Christian. I don't know. And so I don't know what you're actually seeking out in a dating relationship that you would seek someone who is actually not a Christian, unless you're either not one yourself or you don't care. Like,
Yeah.
That you're not actually caring about that person leading you to Christ then. So that makes me
good.
question if you're a Christian.
Yeah, I think it even goes back to what we were just talking about with this sort of idolatry around, having a relationship as sort of like the status to check. And I know a ton of people don't use Facebook anymore as much. At least a lot of our students, but
Mm-hmm.
you're okay on your own,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it comes from this lack of understanding of our identity. Of like, I'm enough
Yeah.
on my own.
Yep.
Like, you're not half a person. You're not looking for this other person to complete you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no. Like you just said, your season of singleness has purpose,
Yeah.
and you can know the Lord, and be on mission for Him in singleness. Matter of fact, you can do it better single than you can in a relationship.
Yep.
Gosh, 1 Corinthians would even say that.
Mm-hmm.
But to this point, someone if you're a Christian, claiming to be a Christian, that's like the number one thing on the list, right?
Yep.
You the person you're going to consider dating has to be a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Mhm.
else can be somewhat subjective. That is the most subjective thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about finding that out? I think that's the hard part. Is a lot of people are like, oh well, like I've seen them read their Bible. They prayed on our date before we ate our food.
They came to salt with me.
They came to salt with me.
They came to church on a Sunday.
They lifted their hands during worship. How do I go about actually finding out if they're a Christian?
Honestly, are they dying to themselves and following Christ?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that actually shows in a lot of different ways. Like, are they running from sin? Are they repenting of the sin that they see in their life and confessing that to community? Are they actually being sanctified to look more like Christ? Is the Spirit working in them to transform them into looking more like Christ as they journey along, throwing off their old self and putting on the new self?
That's great.
I'd say those.
Are they exhibiting fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace.
You got it.
Patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control,
And faithfulness.
and faithfulness.
Yes.
I always
so good.
There's
Missed
always
that
one. There's
one.
always one.
Yeah. Also, I'm gonna go back to like dating a non-Christian. You have to also like think in the future. If you're dating them to evaluate them as a potential spouse, what happens 10 years down the line when you're married and you start having kids and you're wrestling with like, how do we want to raise them? Do we want to raise them in the church? Like, maybe you're a believer, your husband's not.
Mm-hmm.
And something that has been said to me before, and this is probably like commonly said thing, but it's better to be lonely and single than to be miserable in marriage.
Yeah.
And the loneliest place that you can be is in a marriage with someone who does not also follow Christ.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also on that, like, as someone who is a newlywed, like 4 months in, marriage is stinking hard.
Yeah.
And I like cannot imagine. I've already said this multiple times with my husband that like I cannot imagine doing marriage without both of you being committed to Christ and
Mhm.
actually being able to love each other despite brokenness, sin, like all of those things. Like I cannot imagine even being one-sided, like I'm a Christian, the other person isn't, or just two
Mhm.
unbelievers. Like that is going to
Yeah.
make it immensely harder. Like it's already hard. Like I can't imagine being unequally yoked in that. That's kind of what we say. Unequally
Yeah.
yoked is the Bible term for just like not being in the same place in your faith even,
Mhm.
or like being a Christian and being a Catholic, being a Christian and an unbeliever. Like that means a lot of different things, unequally yoked. I think that's a Christian term we use a lot, but
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what are the things you're looking for? I think you said fruit, and you list all of them
Mhm.
off. I think some other ones, like, to determine whether this person's actually Christian or not, and just to rehash it, these should be things figured out on the front end
yes.
of getting
Mhm.
into an actual relationship.
Preach.
Yeah, these are questions you should ask on the front end. Like, is there repentance? Which, that's something you're going to see over an extended period of time. So, like, a handful of dates. Know their community. Know their friends,
Yeah.
right? If you don't know a homeboy or homegirl, like,
Mhm.
hang out with them in groups. How do they interact
Yeah.
with other people?
Yep.
Are their friends bad? Are they a bunch of knuckleheads?
Mhm.
Yeah, like, know their community. And then if they're not leading you, especially like for women, like if your boyfriend is not leading you towards holiness or purity, and he's like kind of pushing boundaries and maybe like sacrificing on some things,
Mm-hmm.
stop. Like, say no, break up,
Yeah.
don't go on another date. Like, it's just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth sacrificing on like whatever your boundaries are.
Mhm.
Or it's not worth being in this relationship because you already have, the clarity that you've been looking for. Like, this person isn't a suitable spouse.
Yep.
They're not ready for marriage. Just break up.
Yeah, I say one more thing on that. It's not even just leading out. Yes, it is, but it's also like unprovoked. Like, you should not be the motivation for their
That's
faith
good.
in God.
Wow. that's
Like,
good.
So good.
I cannot tell you how many times I hear story after story. Well, he came to church because I asked him,
Mm.
or
Mhm.
well, he started reading his Bible because I told him we should start doing that. And like, that's not it. Like, they have to have their own relationship with God, and they have to be following him wholeheartedly. And if you're both doing that, great. Like,
Mhm.
if he's not, bye. Like,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but like, you cannot be his discipler. Like, that's
That's
not how
good.
it works.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I think last thing I'll say on this, and we'll touch on this again in a bit, but we've got to stop seeing breaking up as like that's the negative outcome.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
Like, there's two positives, right?
Mhm.
You either have clarity that this person is not going to be my spouse because either they're not a Christian. There's a million reasons.
Yep.
Or like this person is going to make a great spouse, a great father, all these things. I keep saying it as like if this is the girl deciding. But either way, like breaking up is not a bad option.
No,
Like,
that's
it's
actually
great.
amazing because you've eliminated one person.
Yeah.
Like, great. Thank you, Jesus, that you've saved me from a marriage with this person who is not a good choice to marry.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I would say like, yeah, why are you dating? Like, what's the point? Like, it actually is to evaluate if this person is someone you're going to marry.
Mhm.
And if that's a yes, then great. You keep going on dates and then you get married. And if it's a no, I'm not going to marry this person, then great. Like, awesome. Break up. Perfect. You have clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that like it's not sad, it's not going to hurt, but
That's fair.
it's like that shouldn't be the option avoided at all costs.
Mhm.
No.
And I think that's how the majority of people, myself included, when I was dating, look at it.
Well, and I think that's another question of, are you finding security and idolatry in this relationship?
Mhm.
Or are you trusting the Lord that he'll work it out? Like,
Yeah, that's
if
good.
breaking up is going to wreck you, like, yes, it's going to be hard. I understand I went through multiple breakups, long-term ones that like were really, really hard. But like, you have to believe the Lord is faithful and he has to be your true contentment and satisfaction. You can't just die when you break up with this person, or if the fear of breaking up with them is too much that you don't do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good. So, all right, say the persons are checking all the boxes and now you're interested. So let's go from like the girls and the guys' perspective. So say there's a guy you're interested in. How do you like put yourself out there without being super weird?
That's all I know.
All right, next question. Let's move on. That's good. Let's be weird.
I mean, I would say like be yourself. Don't like do a million things that are super weird and like you wouldn't normally do, like, because you're gonna attract like, oh, I thought you did that. No, you actually don't do that. But like, be strategic. Like, if you want to go hang out with that group over there and you're gonna go do something different because you want to go be around that guy, great, do it.
Mhm.
Like, put yourself in a position that like you can be noticed by him or that you can have conversations with him. Yeah, I would just think it takes strategy, intentionality.
Yeah.
You know, post targeted things on your Instagram story. Go through his Spotify and look at the songs he's listening to. Go ahead and throw that up on the story. Get him to swipe up. Get him to slide into your DMs.
Is that strategic or is that manipulative? Which
I
where's-
think you're
where's the line
learning.
there?
Well, it's called being resourceul.
That's fair.
That
It's
is-
out there, right? It's out there for
we
people
are
to see.
given social media. Why not use it as a tool?
I was gonna say that is also how the culture is turning a little.
That's wild.
That like you utilize social media a lot more in initiation of relationships. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
that's
mean-
good.
Just to be clear, I'm joking. That's weird. Have I done that in the past? Sure. Maybe once or twice. I'm not
my
going to deny it. But yeah, I just want to echo what Kaylee said. Just be yourself. Have fun. And yeah. Go also like be consistent in where you're going to like meet people. Like if you are like, oh, I want to meet someone at Salt, which that might not happen. Don't come to Salt because you want a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
But it's a good place to meet
But
people.
it is a good place to meet people.
Yeah.
I hate to be that person to say that, but when you're consistently showing up places, you'll meet people. You might fall in love. You know, a little of this, a little of that.
Then there you
Yeah.
are.
I would say, like, from a guy's perspective, girls, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to take me on a date?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's that weird. And I think we have to start pushing against the sort of like, oh, you kind of got to be like mysterious about it. Just like
Be clear.
use your words. Just
Mhm.
like talk.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like this whole thing. And where my dudes at? Hey, ask girls on dates. All right. Stop playing this whole game of like, dude, does she like me? I don't know. Like, she posted the song I like on her story. Like, do you think maybe I should ask her out? Just like ask her on a date.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. Yeah.
I will preach
And-
on that too because I'm like, I'm sorry, boys, but you're gonna have to do a lot of hard things in life. And asking a girl on a
Come
date
on, it's
is
not
not,
that hard.
one
Yeah.
of them.
It's
like,
not that hard.
I understand like the fear of rejection, but if you're actually solid in the Lord, like that
Uh-oh.
should not crush you. Like you will be fine
Come on.
if they say no. But also, ladies, say yes. If you have no
Mm.
reason to say no, other than I just doesn't seem like my type. It's one day. You're not like getting a marriage proposal.
Come on, because it's like it's gonna be something reasonably fun
Yes.
with someone who's probably not, the worst. And if you're seriously just not interested at all,
Yeah.
just say no. But like be specific on like give reasons why. Because
Mhm.
like guys want to be attractive more than just physically, but like
Mm-hmm.
they want to be able to offer something of like, hey, I want to take you on a date. We're gonna go here.
Yeah.
It's probably like a free meal.
Just
probably
have
food
fun.
involved, just have
Dating
fun.
is supposed to be fun. Like going on a first date, yes, awkward, a little bit nerve wracking. Understand. Been on plenty of first dates that did not lead to a second. I get it, but have fun. Like
Yeah.
don't take it so seriously.
Worst case scenario, you can use the first date to just kind of practice some material on them.
Yeah,
Be
like a bit.
hilarious, do a bit. That
I mean, honestly, conversation skills are underrated. So
Yeah.
you should probably
Yeah.
all learn how to communicate to
Yeah,
somebody. and
learn
get to
how
know
to talk to
someone intentionally
people.
in person.
yeah, not on text.
Not via text, not via social media. Use
You
your
will
words.
be a better person for going on a date and learning to communicate.
and engage in conversation.
That's great, especially learning how to fight against the awkward.
Yep.
Oh,
And sometimes it's just like fun to be in awkward situations.
yeah.
Just like laugh it off.
Daniel
Sure.
agrees with that.
I hate that feeling. I think that's like my least favorite thing in the world is the awkward feeling that you get.
But it's never as bad as you really like.
No,
Is
it's
it?
not.
It's never as bad as you make it out to be in your head. And once you're there and going through it, you're like, actually, that wasn't that bad. It's just in your head. So talk yourself off the ledge and say yes.
Yes.
That's
For
good.
me,
That's good.
I will get weak in the knees.
Oh, 100%.
I will not feel like I can walk. And then as soon as I
Yep.
get there, oh, this is fine.
Yep.
And I'm normal.
Yep. It's
And
fine.
I'm normal. That's good. All right, moving
Uh,
along. So you're getting to the point where it's like, all right, we went on a couple dates. I think we're gonna make it official.
Great.
What is the goal of dating? For everyone that wants to know, why date? What's the whole purpose of it? What do you guys think?
Obviously, to not be lonely.
That's a great one.
Just kidding. Actually, seriously though, like you date with intentionality to evaluate, hey, do I want to marry this person one day or not?
Mm.
And that's what you
Mhm.
do. You evaluate the whole time. And that's what you like, that's literally the process until one day you get married or one day you break up.
That's
Mhm.
great.
And so
Yeah.
you're evaluating. It does not have to be serious. It can be fun. It can be a fun time to get to know people, to do fun things, to be intentional, to learn communication, all of that.
And it should be fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
Not just it can be fun, but
it should be.
you should be having a
Yeah.
fun time
Yes.
when you're dating.
Yep.
If you are having
Yeah.
serious turmoil all the time, ask yourself, do I really like this person?
Yeah.
Am I really compatible?
That's fair because
Probably not.
honestly, like if you're not having fun in dating where like you're truly just trying to impress each other all the time and put your best foot forward, like I hate to tell you that marriage is not a walk in the park and you're gonna just like be completely sinful all the time and it's just gonna wreck you. So like
Mhm.
dating should be fun.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say on this is like the goal of dating, we need to get rid of this. The goal of dating is not marriage. The goal of dating, I would say, is clarity. Because marriage is an option. Like maybe you're going to get clarity that this person's going to make a great spouse. Yes and amen, praise God. That's a huge blessing. maybe you're gonna get clarity that, hey, this person is not gonna do that
Yeah.
because of X, Y, and Z reasons. We should break up. Both wins. You
Mhm.
got your clarity. The relationship served its purpose,
Mhm.
and then you move on.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's it. That's the purpose of dating.
Yep.
So, moving along in the relationship. Now you're dating. Now we're gonna set up boundaries. It's like the buzzword, right? Like, boundaries. Everyone talks about this.
Mhm.
All right.
Yes.
How do you set boundaries? Where should they be? How far is too far? What are the non-negotiable ones? What do you guys think? All things boundaries.
I've seen this be done well, and I've seen this very, very horribly. Personal experience, even too. So, like, I've seen both sides of that. I have a lot of hot takes of like going to the extreme. Kayla, you just go first. You just open us up.
Okay, so just to start off, a lot of these are not meant to be like legalistic. It's my opinion.
Yeah.
It's my opinion.
That's good.
It's my opinion. So
And wisdom.
Yeah.
It's in like, we're not saying these are ultimate either,
Yeah.
but we're saying like, follow this if you truly want to avoid sin. Like, this is
Right.
not a hard rule.
Because I think we all have experience dating, and we've been through it. We know. We hear from students like what's hard. So these are just like some practical things. But the first thing that I always will say of like boundaries in dating, especially physical boundaries, is no. If you're a girl, no boys in your bedroom. You shouldn't ever be on your bed. It's best to be in like a common space. You can be at home, just maybe like if you live in a house, be in your living room.
But unless no one's home,
Yeah.
then you're alone.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
don't be home alone.
Yeah, don't be home alone. Don't go into like a secluded place. Maybe like don't be in the car together late at night in the back of a parking lot, for example.
Yo.
That's fair.
I don't know that there are
Amen.
good things that can happen
No.
at that time in that place.
I just like want to challenge all of you who think like, oh, we can handle it or we can do it. Tell me how that's going.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not going well, I assure you, because I have been there. Like, I have made every like justification and reasoning in the book
Mhm.
to like justify why I'll be do better this time or it'll be fine this time. Like, I assure you that's not the case. And if you truly want to avoid sin, you have to be extreme in some ways to like actually do that. Like, it's gonna be inconvenient, it's gonna be hard, but I'm telling you, like, discipline and like actually avoiding sexual sin is not easy. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you're just kind of floating along and coasting, like, that's not fighting sin. Like, that's not how it's gonna work. That's not how you're gonna avoid falling into that.
Yeah,
Also,
that's fair.
another like practical thing is if you're like not dating them, don't be like kissing them. Don't be like touching. You're not dating.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think Briar has said this before, no kissing out of date lock.
Ooh,
Yo.
I have not heard that.
Come on, Briar. That's a word, bro.
Shout out.
Yeah, like if you're not yeah, just don't be kissing random guys.
Yeah.
Same-
Amen.
Also, girls, don't be kissing random girls. Or
Guy-
guys.
Guys, don't be. Yeah,
What
just stop kissing people you're not
Don't-
dating.
Don't kiss.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, let's get into that a little bit. Specifically,
Yeah.
like, I think everyone's like, oh, okay, like, this is how you set up boundaries, or like, this is like maybe like where the line is of how you hang out, whatever. But what is the specific, like, physical boundary in dating? Like, if we're gonna go there and be specific, because I know a lot of you listening are like, oh, as long as we don't have sex before marriage, like, we're good. Like, that's pretty much the ambiguity of like, there's this gray area between dating, like kissing, and then like sex before marriage. So
Mhm.
where's the line? Explain that gray area.
Yeah, gosh, I think some people like borderline passed out when I said this at our last like panel late night thing. But yo, in marriage, no one just like casually makes out for an extended period of time and like just leaves it there. Like it just doesn't happen. And like, why would you start that in a dating relationship if the goal is to avoid stepping into sexual sin?
Mhm.
Because it's like, gosh, I don't think I've ever made out with anyone, and it was just like pure thoughts.
Yeah.
I just, man, this girl is a child of the Lord, and she has a great personality. I want to just be the most respectful.
I would love to get to know her more by
Yes,
continuing to
right?
just make out and go further. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
you
that's
know?
how it's accomplished, guys.
I think there's like a serious pushback against this because I think for a lot of people there's a fear of like, oh well, no one's gonna be interested in me if I'm not like going far enough, or I think we're just like, man, we care more about like this instant pleasure now than we do about our holiness,
Come on.
to where we're afraid to actually set the boundary of like, just don't make out. You're not missing out on anything other than sin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Honestly, say that again, please.
You're not missing out on anything other than sin. Like in all, genuineness and seriousness, like you're not missing out on anything that won't be better on the other side.
100%.
And that's not just like this kitschy like Christian idea. Like I took a ton of sexual brokenness into marriage, and like, gosh, do I wish I would have not done that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm telling you,
Ugh.
there are so many scars that you can avoid by
Yes.
like setting up this at the front end and not just falling into these things later. And I know that sounds dramatic of like, don't even make out. Like, I understand, like, part of you, like, most of you are like, yeah, I love making out. Why not? Like, there's no
Mhm.
problem. Why not lay on top of each other and make out? Like, I'm telling you, it doesn't lead to anything good. And all you're doing is hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And you're causing scars that you're going to just have to work through later when you get
Mhm.
married. And you actually have the freedom to do those things in marriage.
Yeah, that's good. And I think we have to understand sort of the why behind boundaries before we can actually buy into, okay, like I see the wisdom here. This all makes sense.
Mhm.
I'm in.
Yep.
See, because like boundaries, the whole point of them, even with any boundary, any law that God is going to give, is never meant to like, oh, restrict you from having just like the most fulfillment and best time of your life.
Yep.
It's to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want the most fulfilling life that you can have, follow the word of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where it's at. And so I even think of like Songs of Solomon, chapter 2 would say like, don't awaken love before it's time.
Yep.
Yeah, like don't do things that are gonna cause your heart to get ahead of where it's at. There's a phrase, I love this. I was given this while I was dating. It said, your level of intimacy should match the level of commitment.
Mhm.
So you shouldn't be stepping into like these intimate things, whether that's emotional, whether that's physical, until there's actually a ring on the finger and you both said I do.
Yeah, that's good. And not even, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly ladies, don't say like, oh, well, there will be a ring or we are going to get
Yeah,
married.
there's
We're
no
planning
commitment.
on it. I'm sorry, but even while you're engaged in rings on your finger,
Uh-huh.
Engaged ain't married.
Yes.
Engaged ain't married.
seriously.
Come
And
on.
so, like, we can't just keep playing these games while you're hoping to be married one day and that's going to be okay. Like, yeah, we just got to cut that off.
Yeah, for real. And I think last thing too, it makes evaluating where the relationship at so much harder. Like 2 Timothy 4 would even talk about like having a clear or sober mind. Like you're not gonna have a sober mind if you're sleeping together.
Mhm.
Because all of a sudden, like your heart has done this, meshing thing that was
Yeah.
supposed to be saved for marriage. Because
Yep.
it takes a commitment for that to actually be safe.
Yep.
And so now breaking up is so much harder, and staying broken up is so much harder because you have this. People use the word soul ties. You're not going to find that in the Bible, but like it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
you have this physical, intimate commitment that doesn't match the actual commitment because there's no covenant there.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have sort of like wound yourselves together, and now you're having to rip it apart, and
Mhm.
it hurts so much more than if you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, I'm telling you, on the other side, like actually being married now, like it is incredible the things that come up from your past that you have to work through. And I'm telling you, you don't want those stories to bring with you into marriage. And so, what you're doing right now, the choices that you're making in boundaries, dating, relationships, since we're talking about those specifically,
Mhm.
that goes for everything right now in your season of life. But specifically those that you're going to have to work through, I'm telling you, it's worth it. And that on the other side, it is so much more beautiful if you like actually honor the Lord and follow him in this and actually trust that he is out for your good
That's good.
with boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have something to say. It might be kind of extreme.
Uh-oh. Come on.
it.
But also, if you guys are like making compromises in dating, it's just showing that your significant other is willing to compromise
Yep.
sexually or emotionally with someone who is not their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you are evaluating them. So, when I'm evaluating someone, whether or not I want to marry them, I want to
Mhm.
know that they're someone who, like, is faithful to their word
Yep.
and who that, like, matters to. So,
Yep.
if you are, like, really struggling in that sin, how do I know that if you're willing to push boundaries with me
Right now.
as your girlfriend, not
Mhm.
as your wife, how do I know that that's not going to happen even if we're married?
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh. And this is the same thing for dudes. Because, like, guys aren't always the aggressor. Like,
That's fair.
stop being okay
Mhm.
with this. Because, like, you're being disrespected and start seeing it that way. But also, at the same time, guys, if you like, you're not really the leader until you're actually a husband.
Mhm.
But the one area that you can lead out is pursuing purity
Yeah.
and clarity. Be
Mhm.
honest about where you're at in the relationship and stop pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, and like
Ah.
this goes into like, are you actually loving your brother or sister in Christ?
Yup.
Mhm.
Because a loving brother or sister in Christ would actually lead someone closer to God than they would to falling into sin.
Mhm.
And while you're pursuing like pushing boundaries, while you're actually pursuing that, you're leading each other into sin.
Mhm.
And that's not
Yeah.
loving. That doesn't point you to God.
Mhm.
That's good. Yeah. And I think even back to just like the hyper specific things, like, yeah, being alone in your room probably isn't a great idea. You know, like be in common spaces. There's common spaces everywhere. All right. Go to the living room. Go somewhere else. Go out to eat. And even if you want alone time, like you can find alone time in public. Go on a
Yep.
walk.
Mhm.
You know, there's coffee shops that are like more intimate where you can just like have a quiet conversation with each other. Like,
Mhm. Shout out to Sozo. They have like glassed living rooms that you're in public, but you have your own living room and TV. You can watch movies there.
that's great.
That's good.
Yeah. So, like, even breaking this down a little bit more, how do you separate the difference between love and lust? Because I think we kind of get those two confused. Because, especially once you step into physical intimacy before marriage, I think the line gets real blurry.
Mhm. Daniel, you kick us off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not really a saying, but I like this too. Looking at love versus lust. Love seeks to honor beauty, not to control it and consume it. Right? Lust does the opposite. Lust consumes beauty and it seeks to control it. Love is going to serve, right? Especially like taking it back to the gospel. Like when you look at Christ, that is the epitome of love.
Yep.
It's sacrifice.
Yep.
It's serving.
Mhm.
Serving like in the point like to the extent of Christ is serving to the point of death. But like even in what men are called to in a marriage, like if we were gonna, get into gender roles, which we're not really doing, like men are called to serve. Like that's what leading looks like, is serving. Like how do you love your wife like the church? You serve to the point of dying for her.
And I can
Gosh.
guarantee when you're pushing physical boundaries,
That ain't it.
that is lust because you are actually being like, how can I utilize this person's body for my own
Yes.
pleasure?
Yeah.
And that's not loving. You're not seeking to serve them in that, saying, what would be the most loving thing I could do for them right now? And I promise you, it's not pushing that boundary
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
putting them in a situation where it's easy to fall into it.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing, because once you're in that situation, like mentally, like there's
Hormones, all the
there's
things.
science that backs us up. Mentally, it is so hard
Yes.
to remove yourself from the moment and
Yep.
even to think clearly of like, oh no, we do love each other. We're gonna compromise in this
Yes.
way. When you look at it, third party or objectively, it's like, no, you're not loving each other.
Yeah.
You're lusting after each other because you're seeking to consume.
And when you fall into that, like, don't even put yourself in the situation where you can easily fall into it. Like, you have to be so far removed that you can think clearly, because in the heat of the moment, you're gonna fall into it. So don't even get into the heat of the moment. You have to take all of those things, which is why I think it sounds dramatic, but like, we have to go all the way back here. If you don't want to like actually sin, you have to set up so many things before that sin to actually keep you safe.
Yeah.
That's good.
Also, if you're single right now, you're not in a relationship, when you do get into a relationship,
Maybe.
take things if or when you get into a relationship, take things really slow.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a while before kissing, or maybe like don't kiss at all.
Yes.
Just because it's only going to become easier to fall into things.
What I always say is that you never go backwards in
Mhm.
physical boundaries.
Yeah.
You cross one, you just keep going forward until all of a sudden you're having sex.
Yeah.
Like you don't go backwards. And so as much as you can, put off physical intimacy. Like that should be your last priority.
Mhm.
And I get it. Hormones are swirling, all that fun stuff. Like I completely understand. Been there, done that. But like you need to push that off as much as you can and actually evaluate if this person is going to be a good spouse or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think to sort of bring it full circle, we also need to understand, sort of reshape our view around sexual desire.
Mhm.
Because sexual desire is a great thing. That is a gift from God. Sex is a
Mhm.
great thing, especially within the confines of marriage between a man and a woman.
Yep.
Like that is the purpose of it. And I think there's this huge just stronghold of shame that the enemy just
Mhm.
has in so many people's hearts around sexual desire, because like fighting it is hard.
Yep.
And then we feel
Mhm.
like, man, maybe I'm beyond grace. I'm beyond, like, I'm not someone that people can date because I struggle with sexual sin, or we
Mhm.
cross this boundary.
Mm-hmm.
I think if that is a habitual thing, like if it is a consistent struggle that you guys are having, breaking up is probably, a smart thing.
Mhm.
Talk to community about it. But say you guys went too far once, like, yes, there is grace, both for you
Mhm.
individually and for the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, one, give yourself some grace. Like, your sexual desire is a good thing. Praise God
Mhm.
for it.
He created it.
Yeah, exactly.
He gave it to you.
Yeah, and understand, like, this is supposed to eventually bring me and my husband or my wife closer.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful thing. But also understand, like, we can't step into this right now
Mhm.
because it's going to hurt and damage both of us.
Yeah.
And it's not something you forget.
No.
And I'm not saying
Mhm.
these aren't wounds that you heal from, but you're not going to forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that like we have to go back to sexual desire was designed for marriage.
Mhm.
And like we
Mhm.
can't be God. We can't play God in this to say I get to act on this now
Mhm.
when it's actually only designed for marriage.
That's good. And, like, confess this to people. You
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
At the thought level. Not, like, if you get ahead of the actual action, the thought level is a much better place to be. Because,
Yes.
say you have your guys or girls around you and like, hey, like, so-and-so and I were hanging out the other night and I was thinking about doing this or pushing the boundary in this way. And here's the
Mhm.
situation we're at. And be specific.
Yep.
Like, you don't have anything to hide from them, especially if they're
Mhm.
community who know the
Mhm.
gospel.
Yep.
And so out yourself and ask them, like, hey, would you pray for me? Can
Mhm.
I continue to check in with you? Would you text me or FaceTime me when so and I are hanging out to make sure we're not doing anything
Mhm.
stupid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Accountability. I cannot preach on it enough
Mhm.
because truly like that, like I did not have that in college. And I'm telling you, it led to isolation and it led to further sin. And so we have to prioritize accountability. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care if it's awkward. I don't care if you don't want to talk about it. I don't care if you can't, you feel like you can't confess it.
Mhm.
You're secure in Christ.
Mm.
Confess it to somebody else. Actually believe you're secure in Christ and that your community wants to love you and pour into
Mhm.
you and help you.
That's great. Yeah, there was a quote from the church I was at before Lindsay and I moved here. And saying, like, if the gospel is true,
Mm-hmm.
you have nothing to hide.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
If the gospel is true, if Jesus has died and his blood has covered your sins and is resurrected again, conquering sin, Satan, and death, you have nothing to hide because it's all been covered by his blood.
Yep.
Period. Cut it, ship it, all the things. On the topic of accountability, though, so say it's like opposite, right? You're the one who's holding your friend accountable and they're consistently stepping into sin, whether it's like maybe they're having sex or maybe it's just like, not sex,
Mm.
but it's still like they're stepping into sexual sin
Mhm.
and it's consistent. What do you do with that?
You got it, Kayla.
I think you need to share the gospel with them. Are they a believer? Maybe not. Maybe. But yeah, I think it's important to just like share the gospel with them.
So maybe we break that down a little bit more. So share the gospel with them. Like, yeah, go over like life, death, resurrection, ascension of Jesus. Absolutely. But like more than that, how do you like practically sharing the gospel with them? Like, what does that mean? Like applying the gospel to this specific situation.
I mean, I would say that, like, okay, Christ has died for you,
Mhm.
which means your life is not your own.
There we go.
And so
Yeah.
you are, like, you don't get to dictate what you do with your body. You don't get to dictate
Mhm.
how your relationship should go. And so if you are continually turning back to a sin that God calls sin,
Mhm.
like, we have to fight that. We have to throw that off. That is not who we are. And we need to walk in the light. We need to walk in the way that God has called us to. And so
Mhm.
I would challenge to be like, dude, if you say you're a Christian, like, you would actually throw this off and follow God in this. And the
Mhm.
fact that you keep turning to sin makes me question if he's Lord of your life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also just like asking them hard questions, and like trying to help them get down to the root of the sin, because it's not just that
Yeah.
you want to have sex and so you're doing
Mhm.
it, but like there is a deeper heart level issue
Yep.
in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So moving on maybe a little bit to some more specifics in a relationship. Maybe on like the back end of it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know it's time to call it quits? You're just like, man, this isn't going well for whatever reason. Like, what do you look for to determine it's time for us to be done?
Well, let's just say you find out they're not a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
You got to break up with them. Like, this is not going to end in a way that is going to honor the Lord. Yes, you can talk about missionary dating. You can talk about maybe one day they'll follow God and maybe they'll actually, come to believe him. And there's aspects of that now. I'm sorry, but you cannot be along for the ride. They have to love the Lord first.
Yeah.
And so you need to break up with him if you find out they are not a Christian.
Amen.
Yeah. Also, if there is abuse or like cheating in a relationship, you are not married. Even if that happens in engagement, you are not committed to them.
Yes.
There really isn't any reason why you need to walk through something like that
Mm-hmm.
in dating. Also, like in marriage, if
Yeah.
you are being
Well,
like
things-
if you are
yeah.
being abused or there is unfaithfulness, like you don't have to stay.
Yeah. There's help available for
yeah,
sure. For
yeah.
sure.
But especially like in dating,
Yeah.
if you're dating this guy and he's really great and he's like a Christian and he's in community and he's amazing and he's so cute, but he's like cheating on you, why are you staying with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He is supposed to be on his best behavior.
Yeah, 100%.
And
Like,
if this is his best behavior, oh my goodness, I cannot imagine what is going to happen when you're married.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that points back to, like, I'm sorry, they're not going to change.
Mhm.
Like, if you are dating them right now, you have to accept who they are right now.
Yes.
And that is your evaluation actively right now
Mhm.
of if you're going to marry them and they're going to be your spouse.
Yeah.
Do not hope that one day they'll get it.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm.
yes, there's grace for learning and exploring
Mhm.
in that, but like who they are right now, you have to accept that. Like, you
Mhm.
can't
Yeah.
change them. Only God can do that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say it too, even in this like season of evaluation, called dating, look for character things.
Mhm.
Right? So maybe they're compromising on sin. Maybe it's not even just sexual sin or like,
Mhm.
Whatever intimacy in the relationship. Maybe it's like they're just like rude to people.
Maybe they're embezzling money,
Maybe they're embezzling money.
committing tax fraud.
Yeah, maybe they're cheating on all their homework.
Ugh,
Gross.
The worst.
that's the line.
Man, maybe they aren't serving at the local church.
Boom.
Not tithing.
They're not even
Yeah.
going to church. Let's be real.
Yeah. Yo, Lindsay called me out on not tithing at one point in our dating relationship.
Girl boss.
Boom.
I know. and I
Ashley
was
should,
super
because
convicted.
truly, like, this is a preview of marriage.
Mhm.
So, like, you should be doing things now that point towards what kind of spouse you are going to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, find a spouse that's not gonna be okay with you sinning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Calls you
Facts.
out.
Yeah, gosh, that's good. All right, but on the flip side, right? This is when that's when you should break up. How do you stay broken up? So, part of my story is this is awful. I was never in a dating relationship where we didn't end up getting back together for at least a time. I was awful at this. So how do you stay committed to like, all right, we broke up, we're done.
No more talking.
No more talking.
And
No more hanging out.
I've been there. It is so hard. But you just have to like cut communication.
Yep.
And also like don't follow them on social media.
Yep.
Don't post songs so that they will swipe up on your social media.
Mm-hmm.
Don't post quotes on your Instagram story. Not only is that embarrassing, but people know.
Yeah, for sure. No one's dumb. Like, we know exactly
I
what
see
you're
you
doing.
posting a little quote about breaking up on Instagram. Girl,
Like, I know.
I know. It's embarrassing for you. The other person is going to see it. They're not going to care.
Yeah.
And that's a dumb tangent, but
I think truly it's just like goes into the emotion behind it of like, you made the decision to break up. You had clarity. There was wisdom. You like sought wise counsel, all of those things. Be broken up.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not
good.
going backwards unless like an act of God shows you that they are loving the Lord and you actually see aspects of them that look like Christ. And so we have to cut ties. We are not playing these games anymore of we're just going to talk and hey, oh, we'll just be friends and oh, it's fine. We have the same
Yeah.
Just
friend
be
groups.
friends.
you don't have to be friends
No.
after you break up.
No.
You can be done.
You can
Yeah.
be civil and you can love them, but you can do that from afar.
Yes.
It's fine.
It's good.
And I understand that it's hard to like unweave your friend groups and it's going to hurt. That's part of the breakup. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. But you will make new friends and you will figure out like different realms of community. It will be fine.
Yeah, that's good. I would say, like my wife now, Lindsay and I, we broke up at one point and it was a good thing. Like neither one of us were in a good spot, me especially. And when we did get back together, it was after an extended period of time where we were not talking. And for both of us, we'd both walked through a lot of hurt. We'd both matured a ton, and there was genuine repentance shown, and community was backing it up. And so we ended up getting back together after, even just like the idea was pitched, and then we brought that idea to our community, and we're like, hey, what do you think? Like, we're kind of talking. We apologize to each other for all these things. It seems like there's repentance. Got the okays, took it super slow, and we wound up getting married, which, like, that's not the promise.
Well, and I was going to say in that, when you broke up, don't expect the promise to be that you're going to get back together.
Right.
Like, that should never be an expectation. It should be done. Like, you should be broken up, and there should not be hope of getting back together unless you have walked through all those things, like you said, and then God still, like, has a story of redemption for you.
Yeah, that's good. So, I think last thing, I think it's important to have friends of the opposite sex that are just friends. I think it's a huge thing because it teaches you how to love someone well without it being like awkwardly romantic or overly sexual.
Yeah.
It's good.
And so, how do you actually cultivate that? How do you cultivate that friendship? What are I hate to use the buzzword again. Like, what are boundaries you set to like keep it just friends? I'll answer this first. If you're stepping into just a friendship with someone, like you guys are just becoming friends, and it can't just stay there, like you can't just be friends with someone of the opposite sex, I think that should raise some yellow red flags just on your own. Like, why can't you have a healthy platonic relationship with someone without it being romantic or sexual?
And like you said, like I think it's super vital so you can actually learn about the opposite sex without there being emotions and infatuation and like relational drama involved.
That's good.
Yeah. I would say just like some practical things is don't let them be your number one friend.
Yeah.
So like don't let the opposite sex be like the person that you go to for everything. Don't let them like be the one person that's meeting your emotional needs, your spiritual needs, like mental needs. And also like if you are just in general like a really private person about like who you share struggles with, who you like open up to, be super careful with like not then overly opening up to a guy if you're a girl or a girl if you're a guy. But then there are people who are pretty like open about things. Like I'm probably someone who is like pretty, maybe an oversharer even, but pretty open. So for me, that might look different being friends with a guy. Like I can share deeper things because I would share even deeper things with my girlfriends.
Yeah, that's good. I think like you can talk about hard things with someone of the opposite sex. And if it gets weird, which like there's grace for that too, just have a conversation about it. Just talk about it. Say, hey, I felt like this was a little weird. I want to keep this like a friendship thing. Let's maybe, not do that again.
Yeah.
There you go. It's been addressed. There's like a boundary set or reset, and then you just go from there.
Yep.
But I think it's such a good thing to have friends of the opposite sex that you can process things with.
Yeah.
Because like guys, women will see things in your story and be able to speak into it in ways that like other guys aren't going to be able to, and vice versa for girls.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge healing point in my story when I had like friends that were girls that were able to like speak into my story and say, hey, like that's not who you are. This wasn't okay. X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And, like, that was healing for me.
Good.
And like by the grace of God, I got to do that with some of like my other friends in college as well. I was like, hey, that guy shouldn't have treated you that way. This sucks, and calling out the same thing in their story.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. That is all things dating and boundaries, all things that we had today. That's like not even scratching the surface.
I know.
feel
I'm like, we
oh
could
my God.
literally go on forever. And there will be more podcasts
There will
coming
be
up.
more.
So
Yeah.
tune in. Next few weeks, we'll be doing more. But yeah, that's it for today, guys.
Yep. That's all we got. A couple resources right before we go. Outdated
Ooh, yeah.
by JP.
Jonathan Pokluda.
Yeah. Kaylee loves that book.
Listen to his podcast, Becoming Something. Jonathan Pokluda and like a bunch of people from his church.
Yeah, that's good. Gosh, I'm blanking on it. There's a book by Matt Chandler. Oh, no. It goes over the Songs of Solomon.
Mingling of the Souls?
Mingling of Souls.
Yeah, that one.
Great book. Read that
Also
one
have
too.
that one.
I think it's really funny. It's hilarious. But that's all we got. We will be back next Thursday.
Woo woo.
We miss you guys.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.
See you soon. Peace.